always thought my mom loved me. I mean, of course she did, right? She raised me. She fed me. She kissed my forehead before bed every night growing up. But love gets complicated when survival is involved, especially when money enters the picture. And when I landed in the hospital for almost 2 months, barely conscious, she didn't bring flowers. She brought a realtor. My name's Rachel. I'm 37 years old. No husband, no kids, but I built a life I was proud of brick by brick. I'm a social worker by profession. Burnt out, maybe, but still showing up for people when they're at their lowest. I've always been the one fixing things. Listening. Understanding. I guess I just assumed someone would do the same for me if I ever needed it. I bought my first home at 32. Nothing extravagant. Just a modest 2-bedroom on the edge of town, with a creaky porch swing and a stubborn garden that never bloomed quite right. But it was mine. I worked 3 jobs to make the down payment. I skipped vacations, weddings, brunches. I chose responsibility over indulgence because, well, someone had to. My family? Complicated at best. I'm the middle child between 2 golden sons. James, the older one, is a lawyer. Charismatic. Always the hope of the family. And then there's Noah, the baby, who's charming in the way that gets him out of trouble more often than not. I'm the filler, the reliable one. The one who sends birthday gifts and answers 2 a.m. phone calls. And maybe that's why I didn't question it when 6 months ago my mom started making odd comments about my house. Things like, "Are you sure you want to live all alone out there?" Or, "It'd make a great starter home for Noah and his girlfriend." I laughed it off. I thought she was joking. Moms say things. You let it go. Then I got sick. It started with fatigue, then sudden weight loss, then a fever that wouldn't go away. I collapsed in my kitchen. The neighbors heard the crash and called 911. I woke up 3 days later in the ICU. Pneumonia, severe dehydration, and sepsis. My organs were failing. I don't remember much from those weeks. Just flashes of ceiling tiles, cold metal bed rails, and beeping machines. What I do remember vividly is waking up to find my house gone. Not literally, of course. But when I was finally stable enough to check my phone, I saw it. A photo on Noah's Instagram, him and his girlfriend standing on my porch, holding a key with the caption, "New beginnings. Grateful to Mom for making it happen." I thought it was a prank at first. A joke. Maybe they were house-sitting? But then the messages poured in. "Congrats on the move. I heard you're selling. Why didn't you tell us?" And then a voicemail from my mom, chipper as ever. "Hi, sweetie. Hope you're feeling better. I went ahead and took care of the house situation. You'll thank me later." I sat in my hospital bed, too weak to scream. I just stared at the wall, trying to breathe around the tightness in my chest. The house situation. That was my house. Bought under my name. Paid for with my tears, my missed birthdays, my 18-hour shifts. And now she was talking about it like it was a timeshare she decided to cancel for me. I called her. She didn't pick up. Called Noah. Straight to voicemail. The nurse came in to check my vitals and asked if I was okay. I nodded. I wasn't. And just when I thought it couldn't get more twisted, I got an email. It was from the title company. Subject line. Closing documents enclosed. Attached was a PDF with my name, my full legal name, signed at the bottom of a property transfer. Except I hadn't signed anything. And then it hit me. 2 years ago, after a minor car accident and some surgery, I had signed a power of attorney document naming my mom as temporary POA, just in case anything happened again. It was meant to help her pay bills or speak to doctors. Not this. I thought that was the worst of it. But I was wrong. Because what I didn't know yet was that she hadn't just sold my house. She sold me out. I stared at that email for hours. There was no typo. No glitch. No misunderstanding. My house, the one place in the world where I felt safe, was gone. Signed away. Not by a stranger. Not by a scammer. But by my own mother. Using a power of attorney I had foolishly granted her, trusting she'd only use it to protect me, not profit off me. I called the title company, trying to keep my voice steady. I asked them how this had happened, told them I had never authorized a sale. The woman on the other end, polite but distant, said something like, "Ma'am, everything looks legally binding. The seller signed under POA. The funds have already been transferred." Transferred to her. I checked my bank accounts. Nothing had changed. Not a cent. She hadn't even given me a share. I remember just sitting there in that stiff hospital gown, fur taped to my arm, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. This wasn't just theft. It was erasure. She took the only thing I owned, the only thing that proved I had built something on my own, and handed it off like a hand-me-down sweater. But worse than that, no one even saw it as wrong. When I finally reached my mom on the phone, she sounded annoyed, like I was bothering her. "Rachel, don't be dramatic," she said. "You weren't even living there. You were in the hospital, you needed help, and no one needed a place. It was the sensible thing to do. The sensible thing." She told me she was looking out for the family. That you'll bounce back. You're always so independent. That she didn't think I'd mind. And when I asked where the money went, she said flat out, "Well, no one needed help with the renovation. He's starting a family. You don't have kids. You don't need a house." I couldn't speak. I just hung up. The next few days blurred into a gray fog of IVs and vitals and whispered check-ins from nurses. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not because I was hiding, but because I genuinely didn't know how to say it out loud without falling apart. I called my aunt, Mom's younger sister, thinking maybe she'd offer perspective. Maybe she'd be angry for me. She listened quietly, then said, "I know it feels unfair, honey, but maybe your mom just panicked. Maybe she thought she was doing what's best for the family." Best for who? I wasn't even on the list. The final straw came a week later. I was still in the hospital, waiting for test results, when Noah came to visit. He walked in with flowers and a smug grin, like none of it had happened. Like I'd be grateful. "Hey sis," he said, sitting at the edge of my bed. "Crazy times, huh? But you're looking better." He paused, then added, "Thanks for the house. Jules loves the kitchen." That's what he said. Thanks for the house. As if I had wrapped it in a bow and left it on his doorstep. I stared at him, stunned. He went on about paint colors, the new deck he planned to build. How Mom had made things so easy. I asked him calmly, painfully, why he thought it was okay. And he said, "Mom said you'd be fine. You always land on your feet. This was just practical." Practical. That word again. Like I was a broken appliance that needed clearing out of the way. I didn't cry when he left. I didn't scream. I just laid there empty, hollowed out. My discharge papers came a few days later. No one came to pick me up. I called a rideshare and asked to be dropped off at a motel 2 towns over. I had nowhere else to go. I didn't want to see that porch again. Not with them on it. Not with someone else's name on the mailbox I had nailed in myself 5 years ago. I sat on the motel bed that night, staring at the textured ceiling, and realized something I hadn't let myself think before. They didn't forget me. They chose not to see me. To them, I was a placeholder. A safety net. A background character in their Golden Boy narrative. They took everything I had because they never really believed it was mine to begin with. And the worst part? For a moment I almost believed them. Almost. But something shifted that night. I didn't cry. I didn't write a long message begging for understanding. I didn't fight. But I also didn't fold. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed 4 words into a legal website search bar. Revoke power of attorney. Because I wasn't going to be silent much longer. Something cracked open inside me that night at the motel. Not like a scream or a flame, but more like ice thawing after a long, bitter winter. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. I just felt done. Done chasing validation. Done trying to prove I mattered to people who never looked past themselves. I spent 2 weeks in that tiny room, living off crackers, ginger ale, and a sense of numb purpose. I started small. Revoked my mother's power of attorney. Sent a certified letter to her house, not because I thought she'd be surprised, but because it felt symbolic. Like closing a door that had been swinging open far too long. Then I made a list. A real one. With bullet points. Not for revenge. Not even for justice. But for freedom. Heavy checkmark, find a job. Heavy checkmark, find housing. Heavy checkmark, rebuild credit. Heavy checkmark, regain legal control of everything in my name. Heavy checkmark, heal. Heavy checkmark, never look back. And so I started. I took contract work at a nonprofit. Entry-level admin stuff, not exactly glamorous but steady. It paid just enough for me to rent a small studio, far from my old neighborhood, far from the porch I loved that now held someone else's laughter. I worked nights, filed papers, typed reports, and swallowed pride with every coffee refill. I kept my head down. I didn't tell anyone what had happened. Not because I was ashamed, but because I was protecting something. Me. My story. My silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was armor. During the day I studied. I took online courses in nonprofit finance, then project management, then grant writing. It was exhausting. I had no social life, no Netflix binges, no weekends. But I was building. Quietly, stubbornly building. And one day, without fanfare, I got an offer. A full-time job at a growing social impact firm. They needed someone who understood people, who had done field work, but also knew the messy back end of things: budgets, metrics, sustainability. It was like every thread of my messy life had woven into something useful. They offered me a director position. I signed the contract with shaking hands. I didn't call my mom. I didn't tell my brothers. I didn't owe them that moment. Instead, I celebrated by buying a second-hand couch for my studio. It squeaked every time I sat down, but it was mine. Every thread, every stain earned. Over the next year I kept climbing. Promotions came, slow but steady. My paycheck grew. So did my voice. I learned to say no without explaining. Learned to speak up in meetings. I even started mentoring young women entering the nonprofit world, women who reminded me a little too much of myself 5 years ago. Eager, overworked, underrecognized. But the world has a strange way of circling back. It started with a message from Noah. "Hey sis. Long time. Wondering if you'd be open to meeting up sometime. Things have been rough." I didn't reply. A month later, a call from my mother. She didn't leave a voicemail, just a missed call. Then a text. "Can we talk?" I might have made some mistakes. Still I stayed silent. Until the email came. It was from a startup founder I'd once helped during a community grant cycle. His company was growing fast and he wanted me on board as a senior consultant. The salary made me blink. The role? Remote. Flexible. Empowering. I said yes. And with that paycheck, I did something no one saw coming. I bought a house. Not just any house, but a house 2 blocks from my old one. A little bigger. A lot brighter. With a wraparound porch and a lemon tree out front. I didn't post about it. Didn't invite anyone over. I just signed the deed with my own hand and framed the document next to my bed. I slept better than I had in years that night. But life had one more twist in store. Because a few weeks after moving in, I got a knock on my door. It was my mother. Standing there with a weathered look in her eyes and a file folder in her hand. "Rachel," she said, her voice soft. "We need your help." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at her. The woman who once sold my house behind my back. Now standing on a porch I owned, asking for something. And in that moment I realized I wasn't the lost daughter anymore. I was the one with the power now. She looked smaller than I remembered. My mother used to walk into rooms like she owned the air. That day on my new porch, she stood with shoulders drawn in, eyes darting like she didn't quite believe what she was seeing. Maybe she expected me to slam the door. Or maybe she hoped I'd melt with forgiveness. But I didn't move. I just said, "What do you want?" She held out the folder. It's about Noah," she said. "He's in trouble. Financial trouble. They're behind on the mortgage. Jules left him. And," she paused, voice catching, "they might lose the house." The house. My house. I let her words hang there. "I thought maybe," she continued, "maybe you could talk to someone. Or help. Just until he's back on his feet." That's when it clicked. This wasn't an apology. It was a request. I didn't invite her in. I didn't ask her to sit. I just stood in the doorway holding the frame like it was a lifeline, grounding me to this new life I had built. I could have exploded. I could have listed every betrayal, every scar. I could have reminded her of the hospital bed, of the motel, of how it felt to be robbed not just of a house but of dignity. I could have made her feel 1 ounce of the emptiness she left me with. But I didn't. I just asked, "Why now?" She hesitated. "Because you're doing well." And because her voice dropped. "Because we didn't think you would." There it was. Not regret. Not remorse. Just surprise. Surprise that I hadn't fallen apart like they expected me to, that I had risen without their help, and maybe because of their absence. I opened the folder. Inside were foreclosure notices, bank letters, final warnings. She shifted, probably expecting a softening, maybe even a rescue. Instead, I closed the folder gently and handed it back. "I'm sorry that happened," I said evenly, "but I'm not the person you left behind anymore. I'm not your backup plan." "Rachel," she began. I cut her off. "Do you even know what you did? Not just the house. You erased me. You made choices that told me loud and clear that I didn't matter. And now you're here not to make it right, but because your favorite is failing and I happen to be convenient." Her eyes filled, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't being cruel. I was just telling the truth for once out loud. "I built this house," I said, gesturing around, "with no help, no shortcuts, no family cheering me on, just grit. So no, I'm not going to help Noah. I'm not going to bail you out. And I'm definitely not going to forget." She opened her mouth again, maybe to argue, maybe to beg. But I stepped back inside and began to close the door. Then I paused. "I hope one day," I said quietly, "you learn to love people who don't make your life easier, just because they deserve to be loved." And I shut the door. No slam. No drama. Just finality. I didn't cry. I didn't pace the floor. I made tea, turned on a lamp, and sat on the couch I bought with my own paycheck. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, casting soft gold across the floor. A few days later, I got an email from Noah. Subject line: "Sorry." The message was short, rambling, apologetic, in the way people are when their world is unraveling. He said he didn't know everything. That Mom made it sound like I had moved on, that he thought I was fine. He asked if we could meet. I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because I didn't need to anymore. I didn't need their recognition, their approval, their version of love tethered to convenience. They had tried to sell me out. But they didn't realize, I had bought my freedom the day I stopped asking them to see me. And for the first time in my life, they had no idea who they were dealing with anymore. These days, my mornings are quiet. I wake up before the sun, make a pot of coffee, and open the windows to let the light in. The house is still, peaceful. No arguments. No expectations. Just me, a stack of books on the table, and the soft sound of a rescue dog I adopted named Charlie snoring at my feet. My life isn't perfect, but it's mine. I work from home now, consulting, mentoring, building systems that make nonprofits stronger. I spend my days helping other people find their voice, their footing, their worth. And somehow, in doing that, I keep finding mine too. No one calls me the disappointment anymore. No one dares. My old neighborhood still exists. So does the house my mom sold out from under me. I pass it sometimes on slow weekend walks with Charlie. It's changed. The porch swing is gone. The paint's different. The garden still refuses to bloom. Noah doesn't live there anymore. He lost it within a year. I heard he moved in with our uncle for a while. Took up gig work. Jules didn't come back. I don't celebrate his failure. I don't gloat. But I also don't save. Because healing doesn't mean going back. It means moving forward without dragging the weight of people who never tried to carry you. As for my mother, she still texts on birthdays, holidays, random days with links to articles she thinks I'd like. I don't block her. But I don't reply. Not because I hate her, but because I finally understand. Love without respect isn't love. It's control. And I'm not a puzzle piece to fit inside someone else's idea of family anymore. I used to think closure would come with an apology. That one day she'd show up with tears in her eyes telling me she was wrong. That she chose wrong. That I mattered all along. But closure never came that way. Instead, it came the morning I signed the deed to my new home and felt no need to show anyone. The day I realized I didn't have to earn space at someone's table. I could build my own. The moment I stopped replaying her words in my head and started writing new ones for myself. People ask me sometimes, "Do you regret giving her power of attorney?" I used to say yes. But now, I think maybe it had to happen that way. Because without that betrayal, I might have spent my whole life waiting to be seen by people who had already decided I was invisible. I might have clung to their scraps thinking it was love, I might have never realized just how capable, how whole, how enough I already was. Sometimes the deepest betrayals are what finally push us back into ourselves. And now I laugh more. I cry less. I listen to music while I work. I dance barefoot in the kitchen on weekends. I read poetry aloud to Charlie like he understands every word. And maybe he does. I've stopped asking why me and started saying, thank you, but I'll handle it from here. Because the truth is, I never needed a savior. I just needed a chance to save myself. If you're watching this and you've ever been made to feel small in your own story by a parent, a sibling, a partner, a so-called friend, I want you to hear this clearly. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to build something beautiful without looking back. You're allowed to outgrow the pain that shaped you. And you don't need their permission. You never did. So take your time. Take your space. And if they ever come knocking trying to rewrite your story, just remember, you're the one holding the pen now. And for me, I don't want revenge. I don't want apologies. I don't even want understanding. I just want peace. And sitting here, in the home I built from the ashes of what they stole, I finally have it.